Welcome to the Tales of a Gearhead podcast. I'm your host, Stacey David. This podcast is brought to you by LMC Truck. Keep them on the road is their slogan, and they supply the parts to help you do that. Also, Cornwell Tools, the choice of professionals and hot rods and enthusiasts alike. If you want quality tools, Cornwell's the place to go. Let's get to it. Hey everybody, I'm here with my buddy Tim Watson. Tim and I go back a long way, man.
A long way, buddy.
Worked at Opryland together, did shows together, and Tim is a phenomenal fiddle player. Played with a whole bunch of people.
Yeah.
You pretty much invented the fiddle, didn't you?
Nah, I'm almost there. I was back in the old country in Italy.
Back in the old days, yeah.
No, man, I came to Nashville when I was like 13 years old, and
when was this? What year? Give me
this
a
was
ballpark.
in the 70s, late 70s.
Okay.
And I came up here, and an old guy that played for Merle Haggard by the name of Gordon Terry got me kind of started. He had a little music store in Hendersonville.
Yeah.
I'll never forget, he had a door that had everybody's signature you can imagine, Johnny Cash and all these people.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like every star you could imagine. Anyway, he got me started, and first record I played on was a Bill Monroe record when I first came to town.
Wow, buddy, that's jumping right to the top there.
Yeah, man, it was awesome. I thought I'd done landed in the high cotton, man.
Yeah. Who
Went
was
to
your
work.
main influences growing up, fiddle playing?
My granddaddy was a fiddle player. He was just a, woodshed fiddle player, and he got me started, and one thing kind of led to another, and I met a guy up in Fort Payne, Alabama. We all called him Mouse. That worked for Mel Tillis.
Yeah.
He's the craziest guy you ever met in your life.
Oh, it had to be to work for Mel.
Yeah, I met Johnny Paycheck at his house one night,
Yeah.
man. But that's another story I can't tell on the air. But anyway, he was an awesome player. But I'll never forget, he'd get drunk real bad. And I play fiddle back then. I played with a real stiff bow arm.
Yeah.
And he would get drunk and he'd slap my arm. And you ain't never gonna mount to nothing playing like that, you know. And taught me to use my wrist and my elbow and my shoulder.
Like a rag.
He said, you gotta be limber like a snake. I give him credit for every bit of my success because as far as a fiddle player, I got speed like nobody on that bow arm, you know, and that made all the difference in making it smooth too, you know. And
oh yeah.
ended up coming to Nashville with little bands from down there, you know, and meeting people up here, and then that just kind of one thing led to another. And I was playing all the clubs down in Alabama and really doing well with that, you know. And a friend of mine was like, man, Opryland's having auditions in Birmingham, Alabama. You got to go. And I was like, man, they don't care nothing about hearing me, you know. I told him, I said, man, I don't read music. I don't know anything about any of that. And, you know, and I'd been playing a bar the night before, and I was pretty hungover. And he called me, he's like, you're going. And I kept telling him, no, well, he's knocking on my window. I live way out in the country. He was knocking on my window way on Lookout Mountain. He shows up in a little Pontiac Fiero.
Oh, yeah.
And brand new.
We'll forgive him for that.
Yeah, I know it. It was beautiful, though, back then.
Oh, yeah, they were cool.
It was badass. We go down to Birmingham, and I go in, and they had, remember they had these forms you filled out when you went in, and it asked, do you have accompaniment tape? Do you have accompaniment music? Do you need a musician to back you up and all this stuff? And so I was like, no. So they wanted to know what songs you're going to do. Yeah. And I just wrote in big letters across the whole pages thing. And I said, what do you want to hear? Yeah. And so I just left it at that because I figured I didn't have a chance. Well, I walk in there and they got this was before Star Search and all that. And there's a panel of judges there, John Haywood and all them guys.
Oh, yeah.
So they're all sitting there looking at me, and John kind of snickers when he's reading it. And they're all looking at it, and John says, well, play us a hoedown. So I played some old hoedown. He says, now play us a something pretty. Yeah. So I played Tennessee Waltz, and I sang it, and with no accompaniment. Yeah. And that goes from way low to way high, you know, and so I got finished, and Phil Stegner was trying to be smart about it, and he says, what key are you in? And he hits the note on the piano, and I just happened to be right on with no accompaniment for the whole song. Yeah. So luckily my pitch didn't move. And so they said,
well, you're a good singer,
They said, now play anything you want to play. So I played just blazed this version of Orange Blossom, you know.
Oh, yeah.
So I get a standing ovation at UAB, the University of Alabama, Birmingham, from all the people that are waiting to audition. So they stand up and give me an ovation. So John Haywood's kind of over there just grinning, you know, and they're writing everything down. And they'd been cutting people off. So I ended up getting a call like in 2 days to come up and play at Opryland.
Now, did you always do your own show?
I was always the kid in the group, you know, so I was backing up all kinds of folks. I remember playing this big big club they built right out of Talladega, and I was backing this dude up, biggest redneck in Alabama.
Oh, yeah.
And we used to play these chicken wire joints. You know, people think that's
Oh, no,
fake.
I played them.
Dude's crazy.
Oh, yeah.
And I'll never forget it, because I wasn't old enough to be in the place.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm backing this dude up, and all of a sudden,
I saw my first boobs in one of those places.
Oh yeah, I did too. I did too.
We're out there, we're playing, and this girl's, her blouse falls open, and her boob falls out. Well, and we're playing, it's like, anybody? Is that what I think it is?
Oh, I know. And I was a kid, I was scared of them. Them things was scary. That lady pulled out at this club. You didn't want to see them. It's like, put those up, ma'am. We've seen them. Anyway, man, I'll never forget, this chair goes flying, man, you know, and there's bulbs breaking and stuff, you know, and this big fight breaks out. Well, man, I get behind this dude, and I'll never forget, because this guy kept coming up, messing with him, kept coming up the stage right in front of us. You know how your mic, anybody hits your mic, it hits you in the mouth.
Oh,
you know?
gosh, yeah.
So he kept messing with this guy. Oh, dude. This guy kept coming up and getting loud, requesting this song. Well, I'll never forget, this dude played a Les Paul.
Yeah.
And he just pulled that Les Paul up to the side and hit this dude between the eyes with the butt end of that Les Paul. Knocked him out cold as a cucumber, man. Yeah. Right out in the middle of the dance floor. Never missed a beat. Nobody ever stopped. We kept playing, man. Security come up and drug him off. His girlfriend screamed. But that's the kind of people I played with when I was a kid.
Oh, yeah. At Opryland, you had your own show. You were really unique there. And tell me about your comedy, because you did a really good. Yeah. You were Larry the Cable Guy long before Larry the Cable Guy, but you're the real deal.
Oh, man, I'm just blessed with falling into the right place at the right time.
Yeah, man.
I have to tell you, man, when I came to Opryland, I came out there and I played the Bluegrass show the first year at the C.F. Martin Theater. Yeah. I played that Bluegrass show, and I backed up Mark Barnett, Jim Brown, you know, Moose. Jim Brown. He played guitar in the show, and he was new in town too. He wrote 5 O'Clock Somewhere a few years ago, but we were all just starving, you know. We were living off pork and beans and stuff, you know, and peanut butter sandwiches. And anyway, I'll never forget, he said to me one day, he said, "Hey, man, we're going to have a big cookout over at my house this weekend."
Oh, you don't say that around a musician,
I know it, man. I was like, awesome. You know, he's like, "You think you can come?" I was like, "Yeah, man." He said, "You like steaks?" And I'm like, "Oh, crap, man." Oh, yeah. I said, yeah, man, I like steaks." He said, "Cool, bring some."
Oh, yeah, exactly.
I was like, "Oh, dude."
I tell you what, man, like every Tuesday, you'd get that thing in the paper that had all those coupons.
Oh, yeah.
And remember the Crystals coupon?
Oh, definitely.
10 for like $2.65.
I still keep them. I don't ever go, but I keep them.
Oh, man, it's like, I'm eating tonight, man. 10 Crystals. That's going to be awesome.
Gut bombs.
And I tell you, one of the things we used to do, and I know you did this.
Yeah.
Walking back through the Opryland Hotel.
Yeah.
And there'd be those weddings and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And you had your guitar case or your fiddle case.
Yes, sir.
You walk right in. It's like, I'm with the band.
Yep.
Fill up a plate.
That's it.
Me and Greg Davis used to do that all the time.
Dude,
man.
I used to get those trays that was left, take them home, put them in like big trays of meat, and put them in the freezer, man. Just, I tell you, we ate good, man, doing those corporate events. But doing comedy, man, I tell you how I fell into that, dude. I was out there working in the C.F. Martin Theater, and Russ and Becky had a show, and they hired me to go to Gatlinburg with them. Yeah. Well, the guy that had been running this show every year would go up there every October for the whole month. Oh, it was awesome, man. We'd play 4 shows a day, 7 days a week. So Russ called me up and he said, "Man, you think you want this show up here?" And I'm thinking, well, I hadn't really fronted a show. So I remember I sat down, because I watched Russ tell jokes. He was a natural. So I practiced, and I worked in front of a mirror trying to get my timing right. I went out there and bombed, man. I mean, I bombed. And it was terrible. And I had some great musicians with me. And the music was great, but my fronting was awful. In my mind, I was thinking I was killing. So that night, me and the boys went out and we got tore down. I mean, I got way drunk. And I get up next morning, I've got a show at noon the next day. And so I go dragging myself in there, and it's completely packed. I just didn't want to be there. I felt terrible. I was just sick. And so I just start talking, just throwing it out. Yeah. All of a sudden, I get this big ovation. They're laughing their butts off. And I'm like, what is going on? You know, so I just keep going. And I thought, I've been overthinking it. I'm trying too hard.
You were trying to be funny.
And man, I just talk to them like I'm talking to you.
Biggest mistake that people make.
And so the crowd from then on, man, I was able to just kill with comedy, man. You know, it was awesome, man. Being able to talk to people in front of show. And
the thing is, though, and the thing that I always noticed is that your approach was so natural and it was so you. Yeah. Whereas other guys would try to put that on or whatever. And if that's not you, that's not you, man. Yeah. People can see that.
I had a lot of people that were trying to do comedy come to me and ask me, you know, it's like, "Man, I'm telling you exactly like you. I watched your video." doing exactly like you, and it's not going over.
Yeah.
And I tell them that story. I'm like, you've got to relax and just be you.
And what works for you won't work for somebody else.
That's right. It won't.
That's just how it is.
It won't. When I left Opryland, I had a promoter that was going to make a star out of me.
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
And all that crap, telling me everything I wanted to hear.
Bend over, Tim.
Exactly.
I'm going to make you a star.
Exactly. And this dude, he got all these investors and all this, you know.
Yeah.
So then he decided to put on the world's largest country music show.
Oh, yes.
So it was a 3-day event down in Alabama on Lake Guntersville. Every star you can think of was on this show. Oak Ridge Boys, you know, Barbara Mandrell, Lord, everybody. Well, the second day, the dude that had been investing money in me, I knew he bought him a new Lincoln and all this stuff, you know. Well, he disappears on a jet with this dude, and they split with the money.
Yeah.
Well, I had 2 of Kenny Rogers' buses down there. I had Buddy Emmons.
Oh, yeah.
I had all the best players in the world in my staff band that was backing up everybody.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sitting here holding the bag, and it was terrible. So anyway, I was ready to get out of the music business at that point. And I'll never forget, man, Ralph Emery came up and he put his arm around me because he'd seen me killing the crowd. I was on top of my game at that time. Put his arm around me and he said, son, he said, I ain't never seen nothing like what just went down. He said, I've seen a lot of shows and a lot of people get ripped off. He said, I didn't see this one coming. I tell you what you do. He said, you be at WSM Channel 4. He said, you be over there Monday morning, 5 o'clock. Buddy, I was there with bells on. And so I went over there and played his show, played that morning show on Channel 4.
Yeah.
I got a call from Mel Tillis and Tammy Wynette that morning.
Yeah.
Wanting me to go to work for them both, wanting me to come over and audition because they saw I did that trick fiddle routine I used to do.
Yeah, yeah.
And I was like, wow, man, that's cool. 'Cause I'd always wanted to work for Tillis, but back then the Statesiders were the craziest band in the music business.
Oh, yeah.
And so I was like, I'll die if I go to work for the Statesiders. So I went over to meet Tammy. They had the band set up by the pool, you know, and it's like this massive place, and I was just in awe. I was like, wow, you know, this is killer.
Yeah.
And she was so sweet to me, man. She was like talking to your mom.
Yeah.
You know, she was just so nice.
And you're looking around for George all the time.
Yeah,
Like, is he around?
Like 2 or 3 days later, I get a call in a panic, and they're like, man, the record label wants Tammy to do the new song she just cut. It's got fiddle kickoff, fiddle turnaround, and fiddle outro, and we ain't got a fiddle player. Yeah. And I'm like, well, I'm there. So I get on the bus, and I've got a cassette tape in the front lounge on the bus, trying to learn these fiddle kickoffs, turnarounds, and outros.
Played by Johnny Gimbel or something.
Oh, dude, it was crazy. Yeah, it was real complicated. So anyway, I got this down, you know, pretty good. We go out to play it. Well, Tammy had cue cards because she didn't know the song. She just recorded it. Yeah. I'm playing, and I get to that turnaround. I played that turnaround, come in there smooth as silk, man. Beautiful ballad. And she starts to come in, and she loses her phrasing. And it just threw her, and you can see it on her face. And this is live. You go back up and fix it. Because the band wasn't doing nothing. Them guys were just keeping on plowing, and I'm like, nope. And I just kicked that.
So you jump back in?
I turned it around again, played that turnaround again. And she came in and got it that next time. And when we came off stage, she come over and she hugged my neck and gave me a big old kiss. I'll never forget that. And she said, you got the job as long as you want it. And I was like, yeah.
You know, one of the big challenges that faces restorers out there today is finding good quality original parts. And there's a lot of places out there that carry custom parts, but finding those original parts can be very difficult. And that's one of the reasons you hear me talk about LMC Truck all the time. Because if you're doing a truck project, Ford, Chevy, Dodge, doesn't matter what year, they carry everything. They have got the parts, those little screws and those nuts and those little fasteners that you can't find anywhere, you can find at LMC. So if you have a project, even if you're not working on a truck, but you might need some hardware or something, you know, that is Ford, Chevy, or Dodge related, you need to have an LMC catalog because I guarantee you, they got something that you can use. Let's talk about your automotive background.
Oh, okay.
A lot of people don't realize that you're a car guy.
Yeah.
You're sitting here in an Indian motorcycle shirt. And you actually ride an Indian.
Yeah, I ride an old school Indian, man. My granddaddy that taught me to play the fiddle owned a country store.
Okay.
On Lookout Mountain in Alabama, and had a shop out back.
Okay.
And my uncle.
Oh, this is getting good.
My uncle went to Nashville Auto Diesel College. And everything when he went back in the 50s. Anyway, he was a really good mechanic. So from the time I was probably old enough to know how to walk, I was handing him tools. Okay. And so I grew up in the shop. I loved going down there and hanging out with my uncle because he taught me to cuss. And so
and I'm sure that there were some posters hanging on the wall too.
Oh yeah. I was like,
the rigid tool girl.
You know it, baby.
So what was your favorite? What kind of cars did you like?
Back then, man,
Were you a Jeep guy, car guy, motor truck guy, you know?
I was always a muscle car guy.
Okay.
My dad had a 1957 Golden Hawk supercharged.
Oh,
yeah.
Studebaker.
Studebaker supercharged Golden Hawk.
That's with the fins, man.
Yes, sir. Had the fins,
And
we
it was
had
factory supercharged. I've been looking
yes,
for one of
factory
those.
supercharged, dude.
Beautiful
My
cars.
brother threw the engine away. Still had the engine under a tarp. I went down to Alabama a few years ago, and he didn't know what it was, and so he scrapped it, and it just killed me because had supercharged. Everything was on it.
Oh yeah.
I had a bunch of cars like that. Then he bought a 57 Chevy.
Yeah.
That a guy had wrecked a Corvette, and he put the running gear and put it in that 57 Chevy. So
Yeah.
it was a hoss. He bought my brother a brand new 1969 Charger RT 440 Magnum.
Oh, jeez.
And
The
it
car.
was brand new, man,
Yeah.
right off the showroom. That was the fastest car I'd been in when I was a kid, pretty much. And then my cousin had a Shelby Mustang,
Yeah.
had a beautiful Shelby Mustang, white with the blue, and
Oh, yeah.
and a beautiful Mustang. But anyway, we had a bunch of great cars growing up. Well, my dad died though when I was just a kid, so he died when I was 12. I didn't have anything like that, you know. He bought my sister 1973 Ford Javelin AMX. That was the baddest car. I loved that thing, man. And so
They were cool looking.
it
You
was
don't
a good
see
looking
very many
car.
of those.
I did some shows for DuPont Motorsports
Yeah.
out in Vegas, and they called me up and they was like, man, can we do something before the show for you? And I was like, yeah, I got a fiddle I'd like to have done, you know. So they
Yeah.
got some guy that does the helmets for NASCAR do me this fiddle. It
Yeah.
was awesome, man. It had color kind of like what's on your Fall Guy truck. It was like sunburst and had all this metal flake in
Oh,
it. And
that's
just
awesome.
beautiful. And so I went out and played the show for him out in Vegas with this, and I was able to show off this fiddle for him, you know.
Oh,
so they
yeah.
all got a kick out of it. They said, man, we got to do something else for you. And I was like, well, they said, you got any cars or anything? And I was like, I thought my old AMX it's sitting in a barn in Alabama for 20 years.
Yeah.
And I said, yeah, I got a car. And they said, we want to get that done for you. They had this guy that had done some cars for Jay Leno, a big racing boat for Hulk Hogan.
Okay.
And all this
Yeah.
kind of
So
stuff.
he's
Real
good.
good painter.
Yeah.
Really good, really professional guy. So anyway, I carried the car out there, and man, they did a rotisserie on it. I found me another car down in Tampa, Florida, that I got a 401, and every option you could get for that year was on this car, which wasn't a lot.
So
with
you're going to
AMC.
keep it original. You're going to keep a 401 in it and all that stuff. Okay.
Yeah, definitely. I want to try to keep it as original as possible, but I want to make it drivable.
Yeah.
You know, I'd like to modernize it some because it's not worth anything to anybody but me.
Sure.
You know what I mean? It's because of what it is. It's just never going to be, you know, Barrett Jackson material, you know.
Well, that's, you know, with a car like that that has a meaning to you for family, I mean, that's priceless. You know, and you're approaching it the right way because you don't want to get upside down on something like that.
Right,
So
I
it's
know
done.
it, man. I've already got upside down on the car, but I don't even care really at this point. It's just I'd like to get it finished up. But
So the body is done.
body's done
And painted.
and painted.
Wow.
The glass is out of it, all the chrome's off of it. It's sitting under a cover in my shop. I got the engine tore down. I hadn't had a chance to get on it because I've been doing everybody else's here lately.
Yeah.
Since I've been off. It's the funniest thing, man.
So you've been doing some wrenching.
Yeah, man. Actually, it's kind of funny. I've got a Bentley in my shop right now.
Okay.
And that's crazy, man. I get all my celebrity buddies are like, man, I don't want nobody else to touch my car, you know. And I'm like, I don't really want to do it, but I love it though, man. I love working with my hands, and I always have.
You know, that's how I started my shop. I was driving all those crazy cars.
Oh
Opryland
yeah,
and
I
stuff.
remember you had that little T-bucket or something.
Oh yeah, and everybody was always like, dude, where'd you get those cars? And I was driving a 64 Vet.
Oh yeah.
When I wanted to go to the Opry, I just drove in. I didn't need to stay.
They won't even slow you down.
It's like, well, it's a 64 Vet. Obviously, this guy's supposed to be here. I didn't have any tags or anything,
Oh man.
But people started saying, hey, you know, where'd you get the car? Can you build me
Yeah.
one?
Yeah, well,
And I was like, well, sure.
When I was still a kid in Alabama, I mean, I was telling you about my granddad's shop. I had started working on everything for everybody. You know. There was a motorcycle shop in a little town close to me, Gadsden, Alabama. That was a hangout, you know. Everybody went to motorcycle shop. So I went down there, man, and I'll never forget, I was 15. I had a little Kawasaki 100 motorcycle I used to ride. And so I rode it down there, and I go in and ask the guy for a job. He says, what's your qualifications? I said, well, I can fix anything in this shop. He said, I'll tell you what. He said, we got a little bike back here that these guys can't seem to fix. Said they put a carb kit in it. They put, you know, back then plugs and points, and they've done everything they know to do to it, and it still won't run. Said it'll idle perfect, but it won't rev.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, pretty sure I know what that is.
Got
you
no
know.
gas in it.
Well, I knew old two-strokes will load up. You know, the exhaust will clog up from carbon. And so I go out there and I pull the exhaust off in just a few seconds, you know, and I'm like, and it was choked down. You couldn't get your little finger through it.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, gee, so I poke it out, and I go by the front door out there wheeling this little bike. I go in, the guy says, "You're hired." I said, "Go get your tools." And so I come back and worked at this little shop. I was playing music at night and going to school. Trying to put it all together. Did that till I ended up moving full time to Nashville. When I was still in high school, I did George Strait's first tour.
Oh, yeah.
Ricky Skaggs, Conway Twitty, did a lot of shows with him.
Oh, yeah.
I'll never forget, man. I come in on, you know, back to school on Monday. Everybody'd be like, "What'd you do this weekend?" I'd tell them, they'd think I was lying.
Oh, yeah.
And it was so funny because I kind of just quit saying anything about it until a tour bus pulled up and picked me up at school one day, you know.
You can't just talk about what you do, which is to anybody.
No.
Because people don't
think
get
you're
it.
Kidding. Yeah.
They think you're kidding, or they think you're bragging.
Right.
I had James Burton in here. We were doing a thing.
I love James.
And I mean, you think our Rolodex is big. And he's sitting on his phone and he goes, "Oh, there's Mick Jagger. I got to call him back. And I got a session with Brian Setzer tomorrow." And all this stuff. And he ain't name dropping.
No.
That's his life.
The older you get, you know, you got a smaller circle of friends that you know you and know what you do and where your heart is.
Sure.
You know, I ain't caring about being the best of anything anymore. You know, I just want to be happy and do my thing. I worked with Waylon and Willie and everybody, you know, through the years, and I've been blessed to be able to still be doing it.
You know, you hear me talk about tools a lot, and there's a reason for that. Because we couldn't do what we do as car guys without tools. And we always need quality tools. And I always encourage people to find the best quality tool that you can. And for me, you know, after years of doing this, decades now, I haven't found anybody better than Cornwell Tools. And they've been in business for 100 years. So obviously they know what they're doing. They continue to push forward in their tools and their boxes. They continue to push forward in new technology. I'm always eager to see what they come out with, and I will recommend them many times to you guys. There is a difference between buying something American and buying something that's an overseas imitation. And you guys that are car guys and tool guys, you know what I'm talking about. So check them out, Cornwell Tools. You won't be disappointed. All right, I've got a question here that's come in by several people, so we're going to address this. I have a lot of people that ask, what do I look for a project? You know, some people ask what's great for a first project vehicle. Some people are asking, how do I just get into a project? What do I look for? That's one of the reasons that we did the whole restoration series with the level 1 through level 5 project. The first thing you need to decide if you're looking for a project is what level of project you'd like to do. You really need to decide that. I'll go through them real quick. A level 1 is just to get it running and drive it. A level 2 is a cosmetic and mechanical restoration. A level 3 is a resto mod, where you're putting in a more modern engine into an older vehicle. A level 4 is a frame off, which could be a frame off resto mod or a frame off original, but it is a frame off. And then a level 5 is a frame off custom, where you're doing all kinds of custom work and everything. And of course, level 5 is the most difficult and usually time consuming. Most people live right in the spot of a level 2 or a level 3. That's what the biggest majority of people do. They'll take a vehicle and either restore it back original, or they'll take a vehicle and do some modern things to it and turn it into a resto mod. So once you decide what you want to look for in a project, here's the things that I look for. Obviously you want to look at the paint and the body and the engine and all that other kind of stuff and decide, does it run? Does it have to be rebuilt? Those are all things that go into this criteria if you're doing a level 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But the biggest thing that I look for is structure, because the biggest thing to fix is a rusty, broken down body or frame. It not only takes the most skill, but it takes the most time. And a lot of people don't have either the ability, the tools, or the room to pull a thing apart and restructure a frame and make sure it's square. That's the first thing I look for. Is it just broken down? Is it going to be too much time and money to repair it? And it doesn't matter if the car is a 55 Chevy or a Packard or whatever. If it's just too far gone for you, you got to walk away from it. Because a lot of people will buy a rusty car like that thinking that they can just turn and sell it real quick, maybe make a few $1,000 on it. I promise you, the next person that's looking at it is going to be looking at it the same way. So if you got it for cheap, chances are you're going to have to let it go for cheap, because other people see the problems as well. And that gets into the whole flipper thing, which is not what we're talking about here. If you're looking for a project, make sure it's structurally sound first. Make sure it's something that you can do. Then, of course, the price becomes an issue, but that's the biggest thing. The rest, you know, the paint, you know, the drivetrain, those kind of things, you can put those together and kind of do those cheaper. You can get an old engine running and put down the road out and enjoy something, but not if it's breaking in half because it's rusted. So structure first is what I look for, and then all the gewgaws, the extras and stuff like that. So hopefully that helps you guys. Good luck to you. Get out there, find yourself a project, and find something that is in your wheelhouse to do. Keep in mind, this podcast is made possible by our friends at LMC Truck and our friends at Cornwell Tools. All right, that wraps it up for us today. It is time for you to get out there, start working on something, build something with your own two hands, send in your questions, send in your pictures, let us know what you're working on. All right, we'll see you later.